Young, or am I faking? On the tip of my tongue there's a sarcasm waiting for you. I'm willing to trade my soul for a bit of your charm. There's no way I fade into oblivion, 'cause I'll keep shining over you all. And if your wings entwining, you better face the fall, keep trying again. Oh yeah, keep trying again. There's mud on the floor, disparate people trying to get through the door, although the room's already crowded. But I'll keep shining over you all. And if your wings entwining, you better face the fall, keep trying again. Oh yeah, keep trying again. Zeros, everybody's trying to be heroes, when all they have to say to be okay is I don't know. And keep trying again. I'll keep shining over you all. With your wings entwining, you better face the fall.
Season 6, race number 6 of the Dark Horse Racing DW12 Series at Michigan International Raceway. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jeff Johnson, joined in the booth tonight by Matthew Rodriguez for a double points event in the Dark Horse Racing DW12 Series. Matt, what do you think we are in store for tonight?
Highly super speedway-like. We're going to see guys going high, going low, all the way to the wall, trying to make those moves. We're going to see a lot of what we saw earlier in the season at Auto Club, Kentucky, a little bit at Pocono. I think we're kind of in a fuel mileage race if we're basing off of previous seasons. Usually Matt Wagner was a name that typically popped up in these events, but I don't see his name here tonight, so I think we might be in for a new winner.
New winner indeed. Only 12 drivers on the track as the grid is filled out. Looking to go green here in about the next 2 minutes. But while we're getting set up, Matt, why don't we go through the top 10, top 12, I guess.
Realistically, starting us off, man who has been on point almost all season, Rick Ravon, ended up going for his third pole of the season. Right now, he leads the series of the most poles. Obviously, everyone is chasing Rick Ravon. After last week, Rick ended up getting a little bit of a jump on Craig Forsyth for that victory, but onto his outside, you've got, onto his outside, you got the return of Nick DeGroot, someone that we have not seen make a start this season. Awesome to see Nick back. Obviously, if the day changed from Wednesday to Sunday, he is making a return. Hopefully, he's hoping to make a splash here at Michigan. Craig Forsyth in the championship battle, P2, right behind Rick Ravon. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, he has been on a tear recently. He is third in points, even though he missed a race. I'd look for him to possibly make up some ground here for double points race. Eric Peterson, man, I can't talk about him enough. It has been bad luck, but we got to Michigan. Michigan's one of his favorite tracks. I really think he's got a good chance tonight. Jason Hand rounding out the top 6. Andrew Wood. Andrew Wood's been on fire these past few weeks. It's kind of one of those Charles Teed moments. You don't want him to wreck it in anything, but he's always got an act for being there at the end. Jeff Hysong on the outside. Gary Corley 9th. Joe McAdory in 10th. McIntosh in 11th. And Joseph Morales in 12th.
That was your top 12 drivers. Field is working its way through 3 and 4 as I assume we're going to get the green flag this time by for 100 laps here at Michigan in a double points race.
Oh, that's correct. That's correct. Now, looking at these, looking really at the point standings going into this race, this is so vital for a lot of those guys who are up in the front of the pack. Rick Ravon, Craig Forsyth, those are the two that really have the most here to lose, where if they get involved in an accident, that can easily take them out of that front running. But looking at some of those guys further on down, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Hysong, Peterson, Cook, Coates, Wood even, a lot of those guys are looking to capitalize on this double points race so they can catapult right back up.
A good start for the field, heading through 1 and 2. A clean and green start, as now they're going to start. Rick Ravon is going to be looking to the inside of Nick DeGroot down the back straightaway, but a train is immediately forming on the outside as we're heading into turn number 3.
And here we're going to kind of a classic who wants to be the leader scenario, because realistically we know everyone who's behind the leader end up getting that extra about lap or 2 of fuel before they have the pit. But obviously you want to be that guy who goes up there, leads some laps, gets some extra points. Again, this is a bonus points event. I'm kind of looking some cluster back there in the field, almost 3-4 wide, about 4th on back.
Yeah, Rick Ravon made it look easy there for a second, taking the lead, but now he got freight train, and he's kind of holding up that 3 wide pack that we had seen forming down the front straightaway. As we're seeing what somebody like me, I would start to call this super speedway racing. You're starting to see these lines form already, and just Rick Ravon checking up that high side. It's going to cost all of them heading down the front straightaway.
Look at Andrew Wood there on the bottom. Andrew Wood, he is, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I liken him to Charles Tieber. He's got speed, but it seems like every week, week in and week out, he ends up getting in a wreck or getting an incident first half of the race and ends up using the rest of the race to claw himself back in. He ended up, I think, causing the lap one, or getting involved in a lap 1 caution last week and ended up working the entire race, getting back on the lead lap, clawing all the way back up to a 4th place finish. I'd be interested to see if he can really capitalize on here today.
So far, no clear favorite. Nick DeGroot started on the pole. Did not start on the pole. Did he start on the pole? I don't know.
Rick Ravon started on pole.
There we go. All right, so Nick DeGroot still leading. looking 3 wide for second, but now it just turns into your outside, your inside lines heading off to turn number 3.
Realistically, don't count Nick DeGroot out. This man has won at this racetrack. I think he's won here at Michigan about 3 times. Now, granted, his last win, I believe, was in about season 2, season 3. Don't quote me on that. But then again, that man knows how to get around this track. I know he's finished almost second to a few guys here. And realistically, you got to remember, Michigan is a fuel mileage race. This is a huge strategy race where, even though it has super speedway type racing, these guys are very clean and they don't typically get in a lot of accidents. So this caution and fuel strategy is always thought out. And I'm kind of wondering, some of the guys up in the front of the field, you see making charges right now. You see trying to ride behind others and save gas. But I'm seeing some about 4 or 5 cars. Eric Peterson, that bright yellow Menards car, I believe, he has to be one of those. I'm kind of scratching my head, and he's won these fuel mileage races before. I don't know how he's going to play this one out.
Well, that is assuming we go green. Dark Horse Racing Series, pretty clean all the way around, but all of this goes out the window in a way if we get any yellows, and they're trying. It's now Joe McAdory.
And look at Joe McAdory.
Yeah, there he goes.
And that's the thing where Joe McAdory, he has not had too many great runs this season to kind of shake a stick at. Except, realistically, most of the times we see Joe McAdory, he has been kind of down in the dumps, and he's been working to pull himself back up. Honestly, his best finish this season came last race at Phoenix, 8th place. Right now, he's looking to kind of turn the tides here at Michigan. Again, Michigan is one of those great equalizer tracks where as long as you stay in the draft, as long as you got rhythm, as long as you got fuel strategy, you have this race.
And a driver like Joe McAdory, as we see him try to take the lead heading down the front straightaway off turn number 1, he's sitting 13th in points, 124 points behind Rick Ravon in the lead, but I'm noticing that some guys, I'm not sure how the provisional system works here, but whoa, close off turn 2. Some guys are opting not to run this race, so they're going to miss out on double points. So somebody like Joe McAdory has a lot to gain here, even with a second place finish, Matt.
And that's a big thing where you kind of look at this where this is a huge double-edged sword where the guys who showed up, hey, this is great for them because they could easily leapfrog some guys in points. Like I said, I pointed out this case before the race, and I'll point it out again. If you look at Luis Gonzalez Nunez over there in P6 right now, he is one of the guys who I really think has the most to gain and the most to lose here. He missed a race earlier in the season. He's currently clawed his way up to P3 in points of that win at New Hampshire. Quote me on that. I'm fairly certain he won at New Hampshire. Who of that win at New? Yes. Oh, actually, wait. My apologies. Yes, he won at New Hampshire.
We're both doing the same thing. We're both
not doing well today.
We're both blitzing through SimRacer Hub to make sure we've got our story straight.
Well, that win in New Hampshire, he kind of clawed his way back up here, and he's in that conversation. He's one of the guys who really has to be aggressive but careful today, because again, he's P3 in points. If he gets a good finish, he can maintain that current spot, and as long as he finishes ahead of Matt Wagner and Rick Ravon, Craig Forsyth and Rick Ravon, I'm fairly certain that he will be gaining in this scenario. However, also big risk versus reward where, hey, if he goes out and dominates this race and Ravon and Forsyth don't have a good day, I mean, he can easily leapfrog him in points, and that extra race that he's missed, it won't even be a factor.
Listening to the drivers on the radio a couple laps ago, they were talking about saving fuel, but I got to be honest, I'm not seeing anybody making a good attempt at saving fuel, as these guys, essentially the top 5, have all been vying very hard for that lead. As I say that, now they're going to single out a little bit down the front straightaway.
Realistically, we kind of have the same issue here where we have at a lot of tracks where all these drivers, again, some of them love being in draft wakes, but it makes the car tight, it makes the car loose, it makes the car do a bunch of things. So they'll eventually kind of pull out, try to get some air to the nose, make the car handle a little bit better. But just going to think, hey, we got to conserve tires a little bit. We also have to manage fuel. We need to make sure we're staying in line. Where if you think of Luis Gonzalez Nunez, I'm currently on board with him, but I'm looking right behind, he's got Rick Ravon right behind him. And he's probably got that in my mind, or in his mind, where I need to finish ahead of Rick. I need to make sure he is in my mirror all the time, while also managing the battle ahead of, hey, Forsyth is also a guy I'm battling here for points. I need to make sure I'm staying ahead of him or stay pretty much toe for toe with him. So I imagine we'll probably see all 3 of these guys stay in close proximity today.
That battle's still underway for the lead, mostly second. Joe McAdory, Andrew Wood, Craig Forsyth, Nick DeGroot leading the field. And there
And
goes Joe McAdory.
Nick DeGroot, we really don't get a chance to talk about him, and obviously since it's really his first race of the season, nice to see him back. Michigan is an interesting place of all to really see him make his return, but he's so dominant here at Michigan, and realistically, I think that man lives for these kind of do or die moments.
Yeah, really not racing for anything other than a win, right?
Absolutely, and you got to remember, he is a multi-time champion here in this series, and realistically, even if you're not fighting for the championship this season, because remember, he was season 5 champion. He had 11 starts, 2 wins, 4 poles. I mean, no one could really touch him that season. And now he's coming into this season where he's not even in the contention for a points battle. He could win this race and he would still be in a huge deficit. But obviously, hey, coming in here and just showing the guys that, hey, you're only winning this because I'm not here. That's a power move.
Exactly. Well, it looks like that bottom line continues to be the dominant line as this run goes on. Well, every time I open my mouth, here comes Joe McAdory on the high side with a little bit of help from Andrew Wood. We'll see if that is going to net them anything here in the next lap or two.
Realistically, I'm kind of looking at Nick DeGroot here, and I'm kind of wondering what his strategy is. I don't know if he's just trying to lead laps, or if he's actually trying to make some tow for some guys, or they can kind of just ride around, or if he really is just kind of throwing caution to the wind, saying, I'm going to go out and just dominate this race as I can. It could be a variety of things, but I know some of the drivers are appreciating that he's kind of punching the hole in the air and saving them a little bit of gas and not really making too dangerous of moves. But I know Joe McAdory is not one of them, and he really wants that lead.
We're talking about fuel mileage, Matt, and I'm curious, is this the type of race where if we go green from here, it's a no-stop race? Or is this a 1 or 2 stop race if we go green?
It's going to be a multi-stop race, but I think realistically we're going to have to see when the first pit stop is and kind of judging off of how far it can go.
So 17 laps complete, 18 at the line. Joe McAdory still giving it his all, maybe not his all, leading Nick DeGroot leading.
I mean, either way, it's nice to see Joe McAdory up front. I know he's had that D1 Life's paint scheme on. He's been running multiple weeks and, again, hasn't really got some airtime that he needed. So, obviously, it's nice to see him get some airtime. Beautiful scheme.
Looking good up front. Farther in the back, these guys have kind of single-filed out. Farther in the back now, we're seeing Greg Forsyth and Luis Gonzalez Nunez battling for position off into turn number 2. Looks like, sorry, that was Rick Ravon in the 1 car. Looks like he's going to get that position now as he's looking to the outside of Eric Peterson.
I did notice there's 2 cars that have fallen off the pack. It is Joseph Morales in the 60 and Dylan McIntosh in the 04. Not exactly sure what happened at the beginning of the race, but it looks like they've lost this huge main pack. So kind of when you get in a situation like this, you're unfortunately kind of up a creek without a paddle. So you got to have to figure out what you're going to do. Obviously, right now, those guys are traveling almost the same speeds as the guys up front, albeit with less help, and one of the guys up front basically punching air. So he's going to have about the same fuel mileage as the leader, Nick DeGroot. So here's the big questions. Oh, Nick DeGroot almost kind of got loose on that bottom line, hugging that yellow. But I'm kind of looking at those guys in the back, and I'm wondering if we're going to hope for a caution or we're going to try and maybe out-strategy some of the guys in the front. Maybe we got something special.
Yeah, I have to imagine. Never really saw anything that could have checked those guys up that much, as they're losing about a 10th a lap on the 10th place
And Rick
car.
Ravon throws it 3. And I kind of thought that was a bit of an aggressive move towards Andrew Wood. But I remember hearing Rick Ravon complain a little bit last week about his driving style. And no, I don't know if they've really made amends.
Rick Ravon, just a couple laps ago, I mentioned he was battling for 6th, and now he's on the front row battling with Nick DeGroot now over Andrew Wood and Joe McAdory.
That's the main thing. Or if you kind of turn your mind back to Pocono, the final lap, we were going 3 wide. You had Matt Wagner in the middle, or I can't believe it was Matt Wagner in the middle, or Craig Forsyth in the middle, and he had the other up high with Rick Ravon down low, and contact happened, and both Matt Wagner and Craig Forsyth got taken out in turn 1, and there was a lot of words exchanged, a lot of hurt feelings, I'd say. I'm trying to wonder if any of those may be carrying over here.
A lot of emotion on the front row. We'll see Andrew Wood follow Rick Ravon for now as he is holding Nick DeGroot to the bottom. And
Obviously, the quickest way around the racetrack is that bottom line, but I definitely seen that it doesn't seem like Nick DeGroot is extremely stable there on the bottom. It doesn't seem like when he hooks up to that yellow line exactly that it's really comfortable. It looks like maybe a tire length up off the bottom line. His car is very comfortable. Past that, any lower, it seems sketch. I'm wondering about tires later on in these pit stops because obviously these pit stops are going to be about 7, 8, 9 seconds. With these pit stops being so quick, obviously the question becomes, hey, is it worth it to take tires or not? Because 1 or 2 seconds, hey, that can make a huge difference on a green flag pit stops. As you see Joe McAdory making that charge up top with Andrew Wood.
close, but no cigar heading into turn number 3. And yeah, you're mentioning tire strategy. I have to imagine with the tire wear on these Indy cars that 2 seconds is on the track. It is going to be a nightmare. But I would personally, I would hate to have to do a second or even third run on these tires. I have to imagine fresh tires would be so much more beneficial for these drivers than it would be the track position in the long term.
See, that's the kind of surprising thing about the DW12, where it's kind of a flip of a coin where most likely, or most often than not, these tires have realistically been very durable, and they've been able to be double stinted. But the speed on those tires, that is the big question in my mind, where, hey, the 1 to 2 seconds that you would gain by skipping tires, would that be 1 or 2 seconds that you would possibly make back up on track with cooler tires or fresher tires in that matter?
A blink of an eye, Rick Ravon back to 5th, Andrew Wood back to the outside of Nick DeGroot. And the longer this run goes, I'm beginning to think that unless Nick DeGroot bobbles, or they just really train up on his outside, that inside line is absolutely going to be the preferred way to go. Ooh, we see him hit the white line just a little bit and come up. So you said it before, maybe a bit of an unstable lead for that 89 car.
And obviously to keep you a little bit updated on the points battle, still, as we mentioned, this being a double points race, so all the positions, all the points are doubled in this great race. But obviously looking at Rick Ravon, he had looks like, as I'm fumbling for words, buying myself some, it looks like he had a 10-point lead coming into this race. So realistically, Craig Forsyth is right on him. Luis Gonzalez Nunez is 45 points back. Nunez would really benefit most from this double points race if Forsyth and Ravon were to have issues. But realistically, Forsyth, in his mind, he just needs to finish ahead of Ravon. And again, same thing for Ravon. He needs to finish ahead of Forsyth to just maintain that lead.
Yeah, tight battle for the points lead. Less so for somebody like Luis Gonzalez Nunez, sitting in third back, 55 points. Now that I'm thinking about it, let me actually go see what the points payout for position is, because I am curious what these guys could stand to gain or lose.
So realistically, kind of using last race as an example. So just for finishing first, you do have 50 points. So that would be doubled. So it would be 100 race points for the win. Now there also is bonus points. So leading 1 or more laps, that is 1 point. No instance is 3 points. So think of that as, hey, you can get easily just 8 bonus points by leading 1 or more laps or having no instance. Now, obviously, you have to also think about Rick Ravon here. He had pole position, so he gets 2 extra bonus points. That's doubled, so he has 4 bonus points already going into this race just by getting the pole.
Looks like the maximum number of points anybody can stand to gain tonight is Rick Ravon. If he managed to hit it the right way, lead the most laps, no incidents, fastest lap, all those things, the most
I think
points
Nick
he could
DeGroot
get
may
is
have his hand out the window. I think he may be coming.
On the radio, it sounds like a bunch of these guys, at least that 89, might be coming in, and there he goes. The only driver to cut off to pit road this time by.
And that's the big thing where we mentioned earlier, with those guys running alone. Look at the back 2. Look at Joseph Morales and Dylan McIntosh. They were 2 cars that were having to run alone. And I'm thinking, realistically, looking at Nick DeGroot, he could make it about 30-ish, 31, 32-ish laps on the optimal being the lead car. So breaking that down into a 100-lap race, kind of looking here, he would have to make at least about three and a half stops.
Yeah,
And that's not advisable. As you see the lead pack start to come up on Nick DeGroot here. And I think may have more takers here to pit road. Now, here's the big question. For some of the guys who were riding behind Nick DeGroot, how many extra laps can they go?
It sounds like almost the entire field might be coming in this time by, and that's going to set the tone for the rest of the race if we're going to look at 30-lap runs. That really kind of takes a little bit of the fuel strategy out of it for now in my head as we see 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
4.
McAdory is in the grass. Oh, he missed the barrier, but
Wow.
he missed the entrance to pit road. That's going to hurt.
A big moment for Joe McAdory. Almost became one with the pit wall coming to pit lane. We'll dial up the replay in just a second just to see what happened. But that is race over for now for that.
It realistically looks like he just took it a little bit too fast and didn't really lock up the brakes or anything. But again, just kind of went onto the access road way too fast, slowed down, but couldn't slow down just enough. Ended up going straight over the grass. He made a split-second decision, making sure he didn't hit the barrier. He saved the car, but again, he saved the car at the expense of himself. So he's going to have to ride all the way around, come back and pit.
Yeah, really, once he was in the grass, it was game over. Interesting to see how this race shakes out now as he is still slow rolling off of 4, coming to pit lane this time by. And so are the rest, at least one of our leaders. Nope, that is the rest of our leaders. Jeff Hysong, the last holder on the track, is now on pit road.
And realistically, looking at this, I think it might be a sprint. Nope, it's going to be Nick DeGroot retaking the lead. Looks like it'll be DeGroot, Wood, Peterson, and Forsyth from Ravon to finish up top 5.
Wow, by a pretty good margin too. So an almost perfect pit cycle for Nick DeGroot in that 89 car back to the lead.
So that gets some of the gears turning here. Just kind of run through your mind of, hey, they pitted about 2 laps earlier than most of these guys, and this is the jump that they have. Now, they're still within range of Forsyth and Ravon, but this is the kind of jump that you can get by running that undercut strategy. Now, again, it has that risk versus reward of you may run out of fuel earlier, you may not have enough to make it to the end, but it's kind of running through your head of this is possible.
Now that the gears are turning, you're right. Looking at it, Nick DeGroot came to pit road on lap 30. A couple guys on 31, a couple more guys on 32. And if I am doing the math right, I think lap 66 is going to be the golden number for anybody trying to make it on one more stop. If you can
break it in 30 lap chunks.
Yeah.
Now, we saw Forsyth. He's gotten to a fuel mileage rim this season. I would not be surprised to see him get a little bit crafty again. But I know Rick Ravon behind. A lot of those guys are watching, they're looking, they're trying to mimic that strategy so they can figure out what exactly is the game plan.
Yeah, the only person I could say probably with certainty can probably do it on one more stop is Jeff Hysong, because he went the longest. He came to pit road on lap 33, so I'm almost positive he can make it to lap 66, and we'll have to go from there.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be kind of a play by ear. But obviously, Nick DeGroot, he's kind of made his bed here, and I think he's kind of figured out what he wants to do. Now, what he wants to do, I have absolutely no idea. I'm just going to have to wait and see. But Eric Peterson's one of those guys that I think is in a really good position to kind of capitalize on this. He's kind of just hanging around here. He's not trying to make any aggressive moves. I mean, looking at this season's stats, as I go back to the previous season and miss this season's stats altogether, but looking at this season's stats, really one of the big things that pop up in my mind had to be Phoenix. Had to be Phoenix, because Phoenix, he ended up qualifying on pole. He got about 300 feet from the start-finish line and then spun out on the bottom lane, was trapped a lap down the entire race. Never could get back up there and fight for a win. He was one of the fastest cars on track, and that had to realistically hurt. We talked to him after the race, and he knew he blew it, for lack of a better word. But I mean, looking at the finishes this season, he has not had a finish better than 4th, and that was at Pocono, where realistically he kind of got 2 positions for free on the final lap with the 2 leaders wrecking. And past that, he hasn't had a finish better than 7th in New Hampshire, Kentucky. Again, Phoenix was a 10th. at Auto Club was 12th, and he's been really on fire all season with qualifying, never qualifying at the top 5. Kind of gets the wheels turning of how many good runs, how many good qualifying efforts can you have before something finally breaks through.
An average finish of 8th place so far this season. Looking to jump that up by a little bit. 6 races into the season, 60 laps to go at the line.
See, that's the biggest the underrated fact about Eric Peterson, of how fast he has been, and the results and the stats just don't show it. I mean, it shows he has only led 3 laps. This is a man who has qualified in the past, realistically, past 5 races. So minus this event, past 5 races, he has qualified 1st, 5th, 3rd, 2nd, and 2nd. And that man has only led 3 laps and has an average finish of really 8. That's it. It's kind of one of those stories of you got to stay out of trouble first to get one of these good finishes. And looking here at the bottom 5, I'm kind of looking here throughout the field, trying to get a little bit better of an idea. It looks like Luis Gonzalez Nunez, looks like he may be a little bit behind that lead pack. I don't think he has them entirely, but he doesn't look as speedy as I would expect, especially seeing Jeff Heisel kind of blow his doors off, just driving right on by him.
Yeah, kind of an odd look heading down the front straightaway. Maybe just got a little too far behind and then just lost all semblance of draft. Now we see him zip right past, right back by Jeff Heisong. So maybe just wanting to play a little bit of the field strategy game and start drafting off of each other. I really think that's all this race is going to turn into. I think the risk, as always, the risk of an incident is low, but it's never zero. And I think these drivers just have to hedge their bets on fuel strategy being what wins somebody this race. Single file basically all the way around the track. Nick DeGroot leads Eric Peterson, who has moved up to 2nd. I blinked and missed that. Greg Forsyth in 3rd. Rick Ray Vaughn in 4th. Andrew Wood in 5th. Luis Gonzalez Nunez in 6th. Jeff Heisong in 7th. Gary Corley in 8th, Jason Hand in 9th, and Joseph Morales in 10th. And as a matter of fact, the 60 of Joseph Morales is coming to pit road. That blows any semblance of strategy out the window, I would assume. As I wonder if he's just going to call it quits here for the night. Good luck for Dylan McIntosh and Joe McAdory, who are going to pick up that position.
That's the thing, kind of the Joe McAdory situation. That is one of those easy mistakes where you want to capitalize your entry on the pit road. You don't want to sacrifice. Realistically, there's kind of 2 kind of pit entries in this league. The ones who push it right to that number, I can think of a few where, I mean, we saw Craig Forsyth last week. He came in the pit road drifting about 2 or 3 times under green flag, just trying to maximize that pit entry. And then we have some guys who try to take it really conservative getting on pit road, but realistically, green flag pit stops are just a fraction of a second, can really make all the difference. So I can't blame Joe for really pushing it, but obviously it kind of sucks when you get it wrong.
Yeah, we've seen it in some of the other leagues we broadcast. The guys who are the most aggressive and the most fun to watch coming to pit road usually are the ones who benefit big in the grand scheme of things. If a green flag pit cycle cycles through, you can gain a lot and you can lose a lot just by that having that extra 2 or 3 miles an hour getting to pit road.
Realistically, it's risk versus reward, where, I mean, yours truly isn't the greatest about getting on pit road. We have video evidence of that one. But you got to remember where, I mean, if you're not trying at least, I mean, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. I mean, that's how it works. And still kind of doing the snake way here at the moment. I'm kind of seeing Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He's tagging on the back of that pack. I'm wondering if he's trying to save fuel a little bit more, trying to get a little bit out of that draft, but I think he would have to be a little bit more tucked up. And past that, past 7th place, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, you're kind of looking at Gary Corley. He's kind of out in his island of his own. He's got Jason Hand with him in 9th. And then you've kind of got Joe McAdory and Joseph Morales kind of hanging in there for 11th and 12th. And then you got Dylan McIntosh. He is all the way crossing start finish now, and he's just trying to hang in there, staying on the lead lap.
Yeah, Nunez definitely pulled right up to the back of the Jeff Heisong there, so I have to imagine he's just trying to save fuel now. So I'm trying to look through my timing and scoring here, and it looks like I don't actually have it set up to show what lap I was pitted on, so that is unfortunate. Let's see. Nope, not there.
Oh, we know straight for a fact that Nick DeGroot, he pitted on about lap 30 coming to 31. So I'd be expecting, if he has the same fuel mileage where he has been out front this entire time, not like that first time where he has been kind of riding around, he was able to kind of battle for the lead. I wouldn't be surprised to see him on pit road around 60, 61, all truth be told.
Yeah, and then from there, I wonder if it's just mind games, really. Does Nick DeGroot have enough fuel to go the distance, and just wants to be in control of this race, or has he made his bed and now he has to lay in it? Something interesting I also just noticed, the box times from our last pit cycle. Nick DeGroot, second fastest on pit road at an 8.3. The only person faster than him was actually Dylan McIntosh, a 7.9 on pit road in that first cycle of pit stops. Everybody else, 8.8, 8.7, 8.9, 8.8, 8.4. So really fast pit cycle for those two.
That's a big thing where realistically not taking tires or just maybe taking a little bit less of fuel, which who knows why you do that at this kind of track. But realistically, kind of modifying your pit strategy just a little bit, it is just fractions of a second that can make all of the difference.
I've just found another magic number in my timing and scoring here. Nick DeGroot, 21 laps, 22 laps now into his stint. Eric Peterson, 20 laps in. Rick Ray Vaughn, only 19 laps into his stint. So there is a lot of cards on the table right now, and I'm going to be very interested to see how this shakes out in the end. If we go green all the way, is all of our conversation going to be for naught, or has somebody like Nick DeGroot just kind of handed away their ability to win this race?
You know what we need? We need the great equalizer. We need a caution.
Oh no.
That will send these teams into a scramble.
Caution right now. It would be a pretty easy decision right now. You get around lap 60 to 65. I think that'll...
I think it forces your hand. You have to pit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you got a caution anywhere before the end of the race, you'd have to pit, especially now. And then really, if we had a yellow right now, that would just kind of seal the deal on strategy for the rest of the race. Then it would become a question of when do you pit in that cycle. But as the laps tick by and we get closer to that magic number, which my money is on lap 66. I think if you can make it to 66, you are going to be good to the end from there, and then the race will be on for the win. But somebody like Nick DeGroot, again, it's going to be interesting to see when he has to come to pit road. Is he running it out, or is he just opting to come to pit road by himself and playing mind games with these guys?
I think you have to play a little bit of mind games, but I think DeGroot has something in mind at the moment, or he really just wants to go out and dominate. But I think we've seen Nick DeGroot long enough to know he's got something up his sleeve that we just don't know.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing any driver knowing that they just weren't going to make it on fuel in a fuel mileage race and sit up there and lead. So only time will tell as we get closer to that mark. Past halfway, lap 45 to go. The Dark Horse Racing DW12 Racing Series at Michigan. Nick DeGroot, Eric Peterson, Rick Ray Vaughn, Andrew Wood, and Craig Forsyth, your top 5. Jeff Isong back at 6th. Luis Gonzalez Nunez back at 7th. Still tagging on to the end of this lead pack, maybe saving as much fuel as he can. Gary Corley in 8th, Jason Hand in 9th, and Dylan McIntosh round out your top 10. Joseph Morales, we saw him pit earlier. He is back on track, so I'm not entirely sure what that strategy was or what that strategy will be, but we will find out by the end of the race, I'm sure.
Kind of looking at Nick DeGroot here, and realistically, my kind of guesstimate, my calculator, I'm looking at him, and when Nick DeGroot decides to come down, that will give me my kind of idea of range here. of how long he could possibly stay out and still make it.
Trying to get a little racy behind Nick DeGroot in the second position. Here goes Rick Rayvon under Eric Peterson. Probably going to make it look easy because I think Eric Peterson just washed up the track and either just got in the marbles or just wants to get out of the way, as he is all by himself on that high side. And he's going to lose a plethora of positions.
Just looking here. And realistically, you see this huge train. And what you may be thinking is the drivers are kind of taking it easy. They're all just kind of riding behind each other. No, this is kind of a strategy kind of mind game, because you see Rick Rayvon there. He's trying to push the pace of Nick DeGroot. He's trying to get him to go a little bit faster than he may want to go. Because I'm noticing that the race pace is slowed down by maybe about 2-3 miles an hour, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but is just enough to probably just throw a little bit of a wrench into this.
And Rick Rayvon just kind of turned up the wick there for a lap. Now he's all over the back of Nick DeGroot for the lead. It'll be interesting to see if he's actually going to go for it, heading off to turn number 1. Now he's going to give him the invisible shove heading off into the corner. Same thing with Andrew Wood and Craig Forsyth, so...
Oh, and I think Nick DeGroot may be coming down this time.
Yeah,
and that's not gonna bode well. I mean, got to think here. He can make it about 30 laps. Yeah, about 30-ish laps. Kind of running my math here. He's gonna have to pit again around. Woo, man, he went up the hill. Oh, but no one wants to lead this line. No one wants to lead it.
Yeah, I don't.
Well, I'm kind of looking here. So realistically, Nick DeGroot would have to pit around lap 90.
Yeah, I can't
that
imagine.
Could work. That could work where everyone's going to have to come down one more time. It depends when they want to make that final pit stop. If they want to short pit early, if they're going to have people come with them, or if they're going to pit later on like 95. But again, it's one of those too little too late. Do you take tires? Or realistically, I don't think you could take tires.
These guys are, I mean, as slow as I've seen them all race, nobody wants to lead. I mean, they backed their pace off by almost 10 miles an hour that last lap, just trying not to lead. So these guys are doing everything they can to make it that one extra lap to get closer to the finish.
Realistically, I think some of these guys think they might be able to make it off of one more pit stop, and I'm not confident in that, to be perfectly honest. But again, I've seen crazier things happen. I've seen Forsyth pull these crazy strategies. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and they're still going. I mean, this is. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not the magic number lap. We're still 3 laps away from when these guys can theoretically make it to the end for sure. And they are the pace. They are just backing their corners up. Andrew Wood doesn't want to be leading. Craig Forsyth is all over him. Nunez coming off the pit road. You see it right there. He's in 8th, and Nunez. I mean, Nunez came to pit road at the back of the pack, and he came out in front of the leaders. That is how slow these guys are going.
Realistically, I'm not even going to lie. I like DeGroot's strategy. Now, here's the bigger question in the back of my mind is, how much fuel is he burning running alone? He's probably going to pit again on lap 90 coming to 91. How much fuel does he have to take to get to the end? And how much of those old tires going to affect him?
Well, the cards seem to be laid on the table. These leaders are going to pass by pit road once again. And I'm beginning to think that this group of leaders, if they can't make it, it's going to be a lot of guys running out with half a lap to go. It'll be interesting to see.
I think if I were some of these guys, I think I'd roll the dice trying to get to 66 and then hoping on that last lap, or the last 2 laps, I could back it down so much where I would be off the race pace, but hopefully I'll have enough of a lead where I can. That's it. We saw Forsyth do this earlier in the season. We saw him do it at the Auto Club, where he backed his pace down so much where he was still being caught, but it wasn't enough.
Peterson hit pit road. I blinked. Andrew Wood has a 4-second lead over second place Craig Forsyth. I don't know.
Realistically, what happened there is a lot of the guys checked up, trying to kind of play who's going to be the leader, and Andrew Wood said, I'm not even going to fight with that. I'm just going to keep going. So Andrew Wood's coming down right now. He's got a really aggressive entry to pit road. I think He made pit road speed just barely. Have to check timing and scoring to figure out. But Craig Forsyth takes over the lead, and that kind of puts him in a weird scenario where, actually, my apologies. He's currently got Luis Gonzalez Nunez in front of him, where I think, right now, I think that Rick Rayvon and Craig Forsyth and probably Luis Gonzalez Nunez are on the same strategy here.
I think Nunez has already pit, so he's actually 6th, right in front of the leaders. Unless...
Oh, my apologies. Yes.
So Nunez is actually being the biggest benefit to this league group that they could ask for right now.
And if I was Luis Gonzalez Nunez, I'd be swerving all the way over the track. I mean, these guys are my championship contenders here. I'm worried about them.
Yeah, I'm convinced these leaders...
See Rick Rayvon making a dive. I think he's going to be trying to get on the pit road first in front of Forsyth. I'm going to see who's going to take this pit road entry more aggressively.
Yeah, I mean, I think these leaders, especially these two right here, Rick Rayvon and Craig Forsyth, I think they've just planted their flag. I think they're going to be able to make it to the end. And now the question is are they going to be able to race, or do they have to do everything they can to save fuel?
So here's the big question. Looking at Nick DeGroot, how fast he's been able to go. And Nick DeGroot, he's going to have to come in around 90, non-negotiable. He cannot make it to the end.
Right.
So using that knowledge, hey, you got Nick DeGroot, who has no speed restriction, has no lift. I mean, you have to go full speed versus Rick Rayvon and Craig Forsyth, some of the best drivers this season, having to lift and probably coast and save to get to the end.
Yeah, and DeGroot, I mean, it is a phenomenally wide margin. About 4 seconds over Nunez right now. And then Rick Rayvon, another 1.5 seconds. It'll be 2 seconds by the time they get up to speed, so...
I don't know about this one.
I'm not a betting man, and if I was, I still wouldn't know who to bet on. I think DeGroot had a strategy and he has stuck to it. I think it could be a winning strategy. I also think anybody else in this top 5 could have had a winning strategy, and we're going to find out in about 30 laps.
I'm just looking here still. And Nick DeGroot currently leads the field by about 4 seconds. Now, granted, the field being Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who is still running alone, and then you have the actual field behind him, led by Gary Corley, Craig Forsyth, Rick Rayvon, Jeff Heisong, Eric Peterson, and Joseph Morales is hanging in there. But I'm kind of looking at this field like, I'm not totally sure about this one. Honestly, nice to see Gary Corley having a good run today.
I'm torn. I think almost for a, I think I would. I'd say Craig Forsyth and Rick Rayvon, they could probably make it to the end with half a lap to a lap to spare. Oh my God! As they're all going up against the wall, as somebody has an issue in front of them coming to pit road.
Looks like Gary Corley ended up diving the pit road, but it looks like they were trying to give him as much room as possible. Or Craig Forsyth was trying to run him as high as possible, just hoping someone would catch the wall. But it opened the door for Eric Peterson to jump all of those guys, and he is now the leader of the pack. Again, that's a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, there's this little part of me that's been wondering if these guys are coordinating with each other.
And some of them are. Some of them have active lines of communication with each other. But it's just a question of who's talking to who and who's making deals with who. And one of those deals off. We're almost in decision time. We almost have about 25 laps to go. Got about going on lap 74 of his upcoming time. And I'm looking at here, and you got to think, this is a relatively quick race. We have currently only passed about 45 minutes of race time. And you got to think, these guys, they've got to process all of his information within an hour and make sure they're setting themselves up in the best possible situation for themselves. We still kind of do our snake way back here. See Nick DeGroot still leading the pack. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, he's kind of in no man's land here at the moment. He doesn't really want to drop back to Eric Peterson, Craig Forsyth, Rick Rayvon. a lot of those guys, but he can't have the speed to catch up to Nick DeGroot. Kind of looking further back at the field, looks like Joseph Morales and Dylan McIntosh may have fallen off the pack just a little bit. I think they lifted when Gary Corley went on the pit road. Just double checking here. So Nick DeGroot has to come down pit road about a lap 90-91 at the very best. Looking past that, you've got Forsyth and Rick Ray Vaughn, who are trying to make it all the way to the end, but they're going to have to lift. Looking at the lap times right now of running alone, which is Nick DeGroot is most likely going to end up having to do, he is going to be running about 32 nines, which is respectable. That's really what has to be expected. Now, the bigger question would be, so some guys like Rick Ravon, like Craig Forsyth, they're probably going to have to run more realistically in the 34, 35 range. Now, the big question is, those 2 to 3 seconds really going to be all that's needed, and can they still make it to the finish line on that? On lap 77, 78 this time, and look at Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He ended up coming on the pit road about lap 77, almost pretty much lit up the tires coming to pit road. I think, yep, it looks like he sped on pit road. So that's going to take Luis Gonzalez Nunez out of this race. And realistically, you got to think that is a huge hit for some guy who really needed this race to go right for him. Just looking around here, Nick DeGroot still leading the pack. Now, I've noticed that Eric Peterson, he has really fallen off. Oh, and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, he took it behind the wall. He is done for the day. And that's kind of a heartbreaker for a guy who was up there fighting for that lead, fighting for that top 5, kind of hanging in with their guys.
Oh, a bad situation goes to worse for Nunez. And now, it's interesting. I've been watching the interval between first and second these last few laps, and Nick DeGroot has been all over the lap pedal. He does not have a care in the world. He has made his strategy, and he's going to lay in it. And I mean, he is pulling away almost 0.2 a lap over this pack from second to 6th. So he does not care. He has made
And
his
that's
bed.
the big thing where he's looking at it. Nick DeGroot's not on a safe fuel strategy. He knows he's going to have to pit again. The big question is he's got to get the best lap times possible. Right now, he crossed the line about 220 miles an hour. Looking about this backpack that's led by Eric Peterson, they're crossing the line. Currently, we're running about 214, 215, 216, 217. They're about 3 miles an hour slower. And if you look at the lap times, it's really reflected where Eric Peterson ran a 33.5 last time, where Nick DeGroot ran a 32.9. Now, the big question is, to make that magical number of 100, are they going to have to back down the pace even more?
Yeah, well, I mean, as they try to back down the pace, I mean, I have to imagine some of these guys are going to start getting antsy. I mean, backing down the pace with 10 laps to go is probably going to be one of the hardest things these guys have had to try to do all race. And I'm getting to the point where I don't think it's to that point yet, but I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to wonder if Nick DeGroot just hits pit road, takes half a tank, if not,
well, that's going to be the big thing right
fuel
now, which is why Nick DeGroot is gaining some time here, and he's not losing a whole bunch. The big question is, does he try to short pit it so he can maybe take on fresher tires and still take on the amount of fuel that's required to make it to the end of the race? I have no idea. Personally, I'm kind of looking at the lap times he's been pulling right now, where he looks like he's only been getting faster, 32.8. Now, I have noticed Eric Peterson is gaining some speed. He's running about 32.8 now. So I'm kind of looking at this where Nick DeGroot, he isn't losing time here at the moment. But the thought has creeped in your mind, where would it be a wise move to pit prior to your fuel cycle, just trying to get anything in the car that you can?
I think at this point, Nick DeGroot, no matter when he pits, he's still going to be on the lead lap. So he's essentially caution flag certified right now. He can pit whenever he wants. I have to imagine he's just going to run it like he has been, run it until about lap 90, lap 91, hit the road. Wouldn't take tires, just take a quarter, a third of a tank of fuel and hit the loud pedal and see where he finishes. I mean, I think that's the boat he's put himself in. I think it's a good position to be in if these guys up front are not going to make it. But I also think that these guys behind Nick DeGroot, I think at least half of them are safe. I think we can see one or two guys run out around the lap to go mark, but Craig Forsyth, Rick Ravon, they are only 16 laps into their stint. Everybody else is 17, 18, 19 laps into their run, so if we're looking at anybody to just go the distance here, it's those two.
And I'm kind of looking here where I see a lot of confidence in these guys, and everyone's kind of made their own strategies, and it's one of those things where you're just going to have to kind of run it and cross your fingers and hope for the best. No one likes to hear that, hey, you're going to be like 1 or 2 laps short on fuel, but it's kind of one of those things of, hey, you're going to have to hope for the best. Just hope we have enough to make this.
Yeah, that interval continues. It's slowed down a little bit, but still, maybe a tenth, a half a tenth a lap. Now he's actually going to lose a little bit over Eric Peterson in second. But it blows my mind that Nick DeGroot, with a 13.5 second lead, is still pulling out on these guys. I mean, the second place on back is coming off of 4. They're at the start-finish line now, and Nick DeGroot is coming off turn 2. He's halfway down the back straightaway, so he's got almost a half a lap lead on these guys.
DeGroot is just slowly increasing that lead, and I'm kind of wondering if he's trying to milk that lead all he can before he has to come in. But you got to know, but it's almost lap 90. He's got that in his mind that he needs to come in soon. I think on lap 90, coming to 91, we're going to see him on pit road. Now you're going to see probably one of the most aggressive pit entries from Nick DeGroot that you may have seen, just trying to get on the pit road and keep all that advantage. Because, again, they're not going to, most of these guys are not going to get one of those another pit stops with all the strategy, but pretty much Eric Peterson, Craig Forsyth, Rick Ravon, Sung, all these guys are trying. They're probably not going to get another pit stop. So Nick DeGroot has to be on it. He has to make sure that he's not losing any time.
Yeah, it's going to have to be the pit stop of a lifetime, and even then, going to have a little bit of luck on his side. He is 28 laps into his stint, so yeah, you're right. We're going to see him come in the next 2 or 3 laps. And then from there, I think it's just going to be a battle. I don't think we're going to see any of these other guys even attempt to pit. They're going to run out of gas. They're going to run out of gas. Everybody has made their bed, and they're going to lay in it. And now I think we're just going to see. I think we're going to see it go super speedway style. I think these guys are going to let Eric Peterson lead.
The biggest thing where you're looking at this, and you think that Michigan's going to be a super speedway in these kind of cars, but realistically, most of these times that we've come here in the Dark Horse IndyCar Series, it always comes down to being a fuel mileage race.
Well, I open my mouth and I can't get a gauge on what car that is, but somebody that's a lap down just, I mean, absolutely gave Eric Peterson a get out of the way. I told him to get out of the way, and now these guys are shuffling it up for what will be the lead. Nick DeGroot on pit road right now, so he's gonna yield that lead, and that's gonna be it for him. Is now I think these guys are ready. I think the game is on for them as we are 10 laps to go at the line. Craig Forsyth is gonna be in the lead. And I cannot, Matt, if you can, I'm not sure who that second car on the outside is. I just cannot tell who it is.
And realistically, looking back at there, that's Gary Corley, and Corley's kind of being swallowed up by this pack now. And you remember, Corley is the one who had the pit, and he's kind of on that unlucky strategy where he's trying to fight to stay on that lead lap. I'm seeing Rick Ravon, he's getting held up a ton.
Yeah, Corley had that big moment where he got up to the lead of this pack, but now everything is shuffled up, and I think these guys have just, I think it's game on now. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Lord. Eric Peterson almost with a big moment with Rick Ravon getting into the corner. Rick Ravon came a lane off the bottom. Not sure if he was just getting tight getting into the corner or didn't want to run the bottom, but that was almost the lucky caution for some of these guys.
So Nick DeGroot currently is about 17 seconds off the pack. Leaders are crossing the line now, and he is in the middle of the back straightaway. So he's got about half a track to make up on these guys.
Yeah, I definitely don't think he's going to be able to make up the time on his own. I think it's just going to...
I think we have to see how much these guys have to back off to make this strategy work.
Listening in on driver radios, nobody giving anything away anymore. 7 laps to go this time by Craig Forsyth. A solid lead for now, and he has a little bit of a buffer with Gary Corley, who is a lap down, running in 6th behind him. And that's really it. These guys are battling for what is second place on track.
I'm not quite sure if Forsyth's strategy here is staying out in the lead. I don't think he has enough fuel to make it to the end.
Looking at the stint, yeah, he's 25 laps into a run with 7 to go. That'll be his longest run of the night, putting him around. Let's see, what is 26 plus 6? 32 laps. So that's right on the edge of what we thought was a fuel window. So maybe he'll be able to make it, maybe not. We'll have to see.
Looking here, and just to compare lap times, last lap, Craig Forsyth ran a 32.970. Nick DeGroot ran a 32.8. So speeds are picking back up. DeGroot's not making that same time, but he did before.
5 to go at the line, and I don't know what to think anymore. Eric Peterson's on pit road. He's out of it. There are now only 3 cars up here battling for this win, and who knows if they can make it.
That's a big question, and no one knows who can make it. I say some guys may be bluffing, saying, "Oh yeah, I can make it," but no one knows until we finally get there.
Nick DeGroot's going to slide up to the 4th position. He's 17 seconds back. Not going to be able to oh my God, I'm having a stroke. Not going to be able to catch these guys. They're going to take 4 to go at the line. And I think now it's just going to be a brawl. I think you're going to see somebody like Jeff Hisong just I was going to say I think you're going to see him run in the back, but it looks like he's going to try to catch. Well, he's not going to get anywhere on the outside. Eric Peterson come off pit road with the leaders.
See that whole cluster behind. Gary Corley's kind of holding some of those guys in the bottom up. So it's really opening up the door for Craig Forsyth to kind of drive away here.
Yeah, Gary Corley, I mean, he has been almost running defense for Craig Forsyth. And nope, there he goes. He's back. Almost running defense for Craig Forsyth. I'm not sure if they're teammates or not. But
no, they're not.
He's been, whether he's been intending to or not, he's been Craig Forsyth's best friend for the last 5 laps. 3 to go right now, 2 to go at the line, and I think it's game on. I think these guys are just going to give it all they've got, as they're going to be 3 wide heading into turn number 3. Nobody's going to lift at this point, and everybody's going to be tracking down Craig Forsyth. 2 to go.
Almost a white flag coming to it. Now here's a big question. Who has enough fuel and who doesn't? Obviously, some of these guys feel confident enough they have enough fuel. Almost 4 wide behind him. You see Eric Peterson get shoved, or it looks like he's shoved. Actually, it looks like Joseph Morales is kind of hanging around. These lap cars are kind of making it a little bit difficult for some of these front runners to get through.
Yeah, 4 wide there for a moment. We're 3 wide right now through 3 and 4 for second.
I think it's going to be a massive run through the line. We're going to see.
Big hit.
Morales in the wall.
Morales in the wall, white flag at the line. I don't see anybody being able to have a run on this 27 car, but I shouldn't talk too soon. Here comes Rick
I watched
Rivon.
that final lap. I think we're going to get a huge run off of turn 4. Rick Rivon, he makes the move outside. Looks like he doesn't have any help here at the moment. Gary Corley's kind of pushing Jeff Hisong up. Rick Rivon all the way down to the bottom. Craig Forsyth, he's trying to make a run. Hisong gets into Forsyth. And there goes Eric Peterson around.
Rick Rivon's going to take the checkered, and I'm not sure who's going to finish second. Nobody else has crossed the line yet. Jeff Hisong's upside down. Nick DeGroot.
Forsyth's trying to get it back together.
Hisong's got nothing. Here comes Nick DeGroot off of 4. Craig Forsyth.
And look at that. Nick DeGroot from 17 seconds back takes P2. That is a huge hit for some of these guys who are really hoping to capitalize on that position gain.
Yeah, if I was somebody like Jeff Hysong, I guess I didn't really lose. He's not going to lose much in the end, but a second place finish becomes a fourth, stranded upside down off a 4 on his lid. And Rick Ravon is going to be in victory lane here at Michigan.
Let me look back at that a little bit, where I see Jeff Hysong. So I'm kind of looking back at that turn 3. I see Hysong come from the top of the racetrack. He dives down low. I can't really. Let me take that from another angle. Just make sure I'm not talking where I probably shouldn't be talking. But like I think Hysong may have been warranted where he was riding the white line. He didn't really have anywhere else to go, and
Yeah,
I think it was kind of a racing deal in my opinion, where Hysong was holding the white line. He was aggressively holding, trying to make sure that, again, it's the last lap. You're trying to maintain and advance your position. Where Forsyth, again, he was trying to defend his position. Kind of came down on the wing of the 18, and they just really clipped and connected together. Hysong went spinning. Forsyth went up in the Gary Corley, and at that time it was kind of all she wrote.
yeah. I mean, on board
Forsyth did a
here with
great
Hysong.
job.
You could see him. He gets such a run, cutting from the top to the bottom. The door was open, and it just gets shut on him at the very, very last second. Runs right into the back of. I didn't catch who that was. I believe it was Craig Forsyth. And I mean, the door just gets slammed on him, and he has nowhere to go. He had probably a monster run on Craig Forsyth, probably about a 10-mile-an-hour difference.
I won't deny, like, again, being in that situation as a racer, it sucks because you're not going to give up a position. If you ask anyone, hey, why didn't you lift on a final lap? It's going to be a dumb question of why would I lift on a final lap? So I'm kind of in that boat of I don't think he should have lifted, but again, there was really no good outcome that was going to come of that.
Yeah, and then looking back even farther, I think it's going to be, let's see, clicking around the track here, trying to remember who it was off of turn number 4, I believe. Not Joe McAdory. Let's see, who was it? Who was in the target car? There we go. Joseph Morales has just an awful incident off of 4 coming to the white flag. You get to see him here with a monster run, and then the door just gets shut. Oh, actually, there was contact in front of him, and that's one of the weirder IndyCar wrecks I've ever seen. It looks like Hysong and Nunez made contact in front of him, and then he runs into the back of Hysong, and that just destroys him. I mean, it just absolutely destroys the front of the car. He gets turned into the wall, into the fence.
Oh, there you go. My apologies. I see it on my screen now.
You have little faith, man. But yeah, it's just a big, a violent crash there for Morales. Not much lost out of that, but still probably a little bit of a heartbreaker for him.
Just kind of looking here, and I don't know about this one. I mean, looking at the top 3, I can tell you that Forsyth probably won't be the happiest camper. I think Nick DeGroot will be kind of dancing here, and Rick Ravon, again, it's just kind of another one of those interesting races.
Keeping an eye out for the points to be updated just to see where we're going to be. And really, looking back on that last lap and a half, once Rick Ravon took the lead, it was like they were fighting not to win the race. Just a lot of contact. And Nick DeGroot, I mean, he came out of it smelling like a rose. Led most laps, going to end up finishing second when he probably should have finished about 4th. Rick Ravon takes the checkered, and I mean that's going to be all she wrote from here at Michigan.
So obviously looking at our top 5, I got some interesting names and some interesting places. Rick Ravon obviously taking another victory. This is going to be huge for him with his double points race, trying to gain a little bit more of a gap on Craig Forsyth. Nick DeGroot making his first start of the season. Definitely nice to see Nick DeGroot back. Craig Forsyth coming in 3rd. That is a huge recovery where it easily could have been, hey, that was an easy DNF, and that would have been 10th place that he would have finished, which would have really taken him out of points. So, hey, a P3 after a race like that, I can take it, and I can be happy with that. Jeff Hysong coming in 4th, Gary Corley 5th. And that's a great thing for Gary Corley, kind of just hanging in there with the lead lap cars, managing to get a top 5 still. And Jason Hand in 00, he managed to recover for a P6. Dylan McIntosh for a P7. Eric Peterson, even after all of his last lap fiasco, him flying through the air, he comes through P8. Joseph Morales here in 9th. And Joseph Morales, he really got turned into the fence on the white flag lap. So, hey, P9 is not that bad. And Joe McAdory rounding out the field in top 10.
So an interesting race here tonight at Michigan, caution free for all 100 laps, and Rick Ravon comes out on top. Look around the Discord, Matt. I believe we might have some drivers to interview.
So let's go see if we can pull our third place finisher, Craig Forsyth here. There he is. Hi, Craig. Matt and Jeff here in the booth.
Hey guys.
So, not the finish you're hoping for. Obviously, you typically don't want to be staring at the pit road wall when you're coming to the finish line, but you made it work. How was it?
Well, guess I'm on the podium. That it was last couple laps were tight. Everyone was fighting. There were I think Gary and Joseph, the lapped cars, were having their own little decision on who was going to get the be the leader of their little group, and then we had our little group of people trying to decide who was going to lead. And I was trying to keep them as involved with each other as possible, and it was working for a number of laps. But then, I guess it was one lap or two laps before the end. I think it was Joseph. Looked like he went off, and then that caused them to break up, and that gave enough separation that Rick could just foot down, focus, had a clear run at me, and I knew as soon as he started to get the run that there was nothing I could. I mean, I could have weaved all over the track like a crazy person, but that's wasn't going to happen. So he was going to get the run no matter what, and I wasn't going to have him drive through my back end. So he got the run, and then it was for on me to try and get the run back, and that's just fighting on the last lap for every little space, and didn't work out for me, that's for sure.
Craig, we were talking about fuel strategy a lot that entire race. I am curious to know what was the fuel strategy like? Was that something you guys had actively worked towards, or was the writing just kind of on the wall from the get-go?
I didn't realize that we were going to have the fuel number, the fuel number we had for the laps. It was because the second I got into the car and saw that whatever percentage fuel we were at, it was like, well, this is a fuel save race right from the get-go. Like you know, 29 laps full throttle, or 27 to 29 depending on, but you can fuel save in the draft massively here. So had this been a 120 lap race, would have been totally different, but because it was a 100 lap race, it was a fuel save right from the get-go, unless a caution happened. And it was a little bit of craziness around each of the pit cycles, that's for sure, but everyone was committed to the fuel save.
So obviously, with this being a double points race, not the finish that you wanted. Obviously, double points race, you always want to be as high as can be. With Rick Ravon taking the victory and you finishing third, the blow is not that big, but obviously not how you want to go into the next week. How do you kind of plan to start taking down some of that points lead and hopefully start clawing your way back?
I don't know. It's Rick's a hard competitor to get. You can't let him get an advantage, because once he's got it, it's hard to get it away from him. So we're gonna try our best. But yeah, this was a definite blow to the championship race. I said last week that this is I'm good at this track, but he's also good at this track. So this. I needed this to work out the other way around. That's for sure.
Well, obviously, great to have you here. I know it wasn't a result that you're hoping for, but might as well give you a little bit of a spot. Any sponsors, thank you, shout outs?
Yeah, I got to thank Jim over at 4D Racewear, sponsor on the car, and it's good to have him there, and you guys over at FRN, and I mean the whole crew. It's we had a couple guys that weren't able to make it tonight, which was unfortunate. Numbers were a little low, which you don't want to see at a drafting track like this. You want big packs, but we tried we tried to make it as good a race as we could, but the fuel number was really in our face the whole race. So there wasn't much to be done but fuel save.
Yeah, Michigan has turned into one of those tracks where it's not very much of a super speedway as it is more or less a fuel mileage race, which is odd. Odd to a track that you go 220 miles an hour at.
No,
But
the funnest, fastest track is the biggest fuel saver.
But obviously, nice to have you here. Hope to see you next week. Hopefully, we'll talk to you in the victory lane.
You bet, you guys. Have a good night.
And that was our P3, Craig Forsyth. Now, let's get a little bit different perspective here from Nick DeGroot. Hi, Nick. It's Matt and Jeff here from FRN. How you doing?
Hey, guys.
So, nice to see you again.
Yes, good to be back. It was a weird race to come back for. I did not expect Michigan to go that way, but yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, so we were kind of scratching our head the entire race. Like, we know he has a strategy. We just don't know what strategy it is. Did you play out your strategy to perfection, or what would you've done to make it a little bit different?
If I was points racing, I would have done exactly what Craig, Rick, and Jeff and those guys did, but I'm here for a one-off. And I'm like, I'm not going to sit here for 100 laps to save fuel. I'm just going to go for it. Hopefully we either get a caution or they're not able to make it. And you know what? It's pretty good to have to pit an extra time at Michigan under green and still end up second. So it worked out pretty well in the end. Just needed one more spot there. When I saw them all wrecking on the front stretch, I'm like, okay, there's 1, 2, 3. That's 3 cars. I didn't know who it was, but I just kept going. And yeah, so that was the strategy. Go hard from green flag to checkered flag and see where the cards fall.
Don't know if Jeff is there, but I'll go ahead and I'll fill in for another question. So obviously, with you not being in this points battle and really in the points championship, what's your kind of take? I mean, obviously, we hope to see you here for more races this season, but is it going to be more of the kind of throw it at the wall and hope to see what sticks, or is it going to be more of the kind of conservative, we're going to try and win races?
Oh, yeah, I have enough conservative racing in other leagues I do. So if I'm going for a one-off, I'm going to take the riskiest, boldest strategy possible and just go for it. Yeah.
And I think we may have lost Jeff. I'm not exactly sure, but I'll give you a little bit of space. Give you any sponsors shout outs. I know it wasn't the P1 that you're expecting, but hey, P2 isn't that bad when you see P3 in the grass. So
Yeah. And P1 did one less stop than you. So yeah. Good to be back. Good to always race with these guys. I get to see some of them in Area 51 on Tuesdays, but not all of them. So it's cool to get back with them and in these cars. And thank you to everybody at Factorback Motorsports, CobyMoore.com, Motorsport.com, Canvas Shoes, Cowboy Shin, everybody else who supports us. Don't know what my next race will be, but I'll try to do another one before the season's over. That's for sure.
sounds good. See if you can bring Kobe Moore back with you. I haven't heard from him in a while.
I've been trying. He won't get off those road courses.
Yeah. Aye.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Oh, I almost moved myself out of the booth. That would have been very bad. So let's go ahead and pull our race winner here, Rick Ravon. Hey, Rick, it's another week. It's another victory. It's Matt and Jeff here in the booth.
What's up, Matt and Jeff?
So obviously, this race was kind of an interesting race. I mean, we go to Michigan, we think of a super speedway. We don't really always think of fuel mileage, but Michigan just kind of has that knack to it. What was that kind of strategy there where you could make it about 33-ish, 35-ish laps on a pit stop, but you guys managed to stretch it to about 37?
I think we got 34 actually, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I mean, that was the strategy. I wasn't about to get caught by another fuel run race and lose a race because of fuel mileage. So I just, just hanging back, and that was the plan. I wanted to make sure. I figured that Craig would be in front before the thing was over, and so I knew that it was going to come to a last lap slingshot on the backstretch. And we led the first lap, and we led the last lap. We only led 2 laps in this race. I think that's pretty funny. But there was one time when Craig slowed down. He went to the outside. He wanted to be behind me, and I said, not happening. and I slowed down with him and I stayed behind him. I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be able to make it to the end. And once the crew told me, okay, you could turn it up, then it was time to go. But I still had to, I didn't want somebody to bust a slingshot on me on the last lap. So I wanted to make sure I was back there and behind. I hate to say it was kind of a boring race because it was follow the leader, but that's the nature of these things when, you have a chance. Yeah, you have a chance to save fuel. And so everybody was saving fuel because you couldn't win the race unless you conserved. You figured, with the quality of the field, and it wasn't a particularly big count tonight. So chances are you got to play the odds. Chances are it would go green flag to flag. So you had to play on that strategy, and we did. And, to Craig Forsyth's credit, he could have moved a little bit more, but he stayed on the bottom, and I think he figured that was a short way around, and because Nick DeGroot was staying down there and nobody could get around him. But I got a good enough run where I was able to clear him going into 3, and I knew at that point, oh boy, we're going to beat him to the line. I was just going to stay on the low line. There wasn't enough time to get me back. I don't know what happened behind me. I have to look at the replay, but somebody wrecked somebody, and then Forsyth was involved, and somehow Nick DeGroot came around to finish second. So Craig lost more points right there in this critical double points race. But I guess that's racing, man. It happens that way sometimes. It was good to see Nick out there, though.
Yeah, I think that kind of answers what the next question I was about to go into, which is, obviously, I think you've seen the replay of that final incident. We up here kind of called it a racing incident. We didn't really think it was anything malicious, but obviously, your take on it.
I actually didn't see it. I'm still sitting in the car in Victory Circle. I usually do that if I win a race so that the broadcasters have something to look at during the interview. The winner's interview, you can see the car there. Usually I stop on a start-finish line if I win. But this track has a victory lane, Victory Circle. Actually, Phoenix does too, but it's so dark you can't even see the car. So what's the point? iRacing. So I was on a start-finish lane there too. But I haven't seen the replay, but I just saw it was getting kind of crazy behind me. And then I saw Craig go spin, and I went, poor Craig, because he's a decent guy. He's in the running for the championship here. So that was pretty unfortunate for him. But I'm just glad to be sitting here in Victory Circle.
Absolutely. And I think we may have Jeff back if Jeff's got any questions for you.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Rick. I've never met you before. I might never meet you again, but I just wanted to congratulate you. I just wanted to congratulate you on a fantastically ran race. I'm not sure what Matt asked, so I won't ask you anything else. I will just give you an opportunity to say thank you to your sponsors or anybody else.
Well, Matt was just asking me what I like to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, basically. Nothing racing related, but that's okay. I answered those questions and we move on. But thanks, sponsors and shout outs. Let's see. It's always the same thing, really. I thank the guys at Dark Horse for putting on this series. It's a lot of fun racing here. I want to thank all the drivers out there. Everybody did a great job. No yellow flags. It is Michigan, but still, that's great. Yeah. Thanks to you guys at FRN. Let's see. Thanks to my wife for falling asleep during the race. I really appreciate that, honey. Thank you. Thanks to my kids, Zoe and Mila. Love you. Thank you, Jesus, for dying on the cross for me. And thanks to everybody out there who watches and supports this league. I don't know. Is there anybody I'm forgetting? Thanks, Roger Penske. Thank you for all your help with, nothing, actually, just being an inspiration to me. And I guess that's about it. Thank you, everybody.
And that was your race winner, Rick Ravon. Obviously, Rick, I'm going to try to do it 3 in a row next week. Hope for the best.
Oh, yeah, I think we're at Milwaukee next week. It's a decent track for me. We'll see what happens. I just go race to race. Hey, 3 in a row, got to get it. That is, if I think that way, that'll be in my head. And, it could mess up my rhythm or something like that if I start thinking about statistics rather than just taking it race to race. So, you just got to be consistent. If you're in a position to win, great. If not, just score as many points as you can. Just try as best as you can to stay out of trouble. Milwaukee's a very tight racetrack, and we'll see what the setup is like. It's probably going to be a good one because they always provide you with good setups here at Dark Horse. So it'll probably be a fun, racy setup. And that should actually be a pretty good race. So I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun race to watch.
Whatever the result, looking forward to Milwaukee.
Yep.
Oh, well, that was the end of the interview with Rick Ravon. But obviously, looking forward to Milwaukee. Let's kind of look at this here. We're kind of going off our last few tracks, looking at the results of our last few tracks. There is kind of a disparity where you're looking here. So look at Phoenix, where Rick Ravon ended up winning that race. Now, Phoenix and Milwaukee are two very different tracks. They do have some similarities, but not exactly. But the track that I'd most liken to Milwaukee at the moment has to be New Hampshire, where we saw Luis Gonzalez Nunez really kind of elk out the field and take that victory there. So I'd be kind of looking at Luis Gonzalez Nunez to kind of show out there, maybe be one of the threats in my mind to kind of show up. Craig Forsyth, Rick Ravon always are a contender. Nick DeGroot, obviously, if he comes next week, 100%, he is always a factor. But also, you got to look at some of the dark horses, pun intended, literally at, look at Gary Corley. He's been on a run these last few weeks. Eric Peterson, it just really matters when he gets his feet under him and kind of has a solid race where he doesn't have any issues. That's one of the big things in my mind.
Yeah, so a lot of season left to go. Looking at that schedule, and then Matt, I'm not sure if you talked about it at all while I was dealing with a little bit of an issue here, but it looks like the points have been updated, and I guess it makes sense, but I'm actually kind of surprised to see Rick Ravon pull. It looks like about another 35 points out over Craig Forsyth. So Craig
And
Forsyth.
that's the huge thing where Forsyth had 100 points for winning this, or sorry, Rick Ravon had 100 points for winning this race. Forsyth got 70 points for finishing third. That is a huge blow from, even if he just finished second, he would still be about 20 points behind, but 30 points in the hole, that is huge for him.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, really, kind of looking down the points sheet, the biggest mover, Jason Hand, up 6 positions. A couple guys looks like they weren't here tonight, so that definitely blew them way back down in the points. But Jason Hand up to 10th, and then everybody else, the intervals are kind of where they were before the race. It looks like Craig Forsyth, at the end of the day, might end up being the biggest loser.
Funny enough, and that's the huge thing where to face off against some guys like Rick Ravon, Nick DeGroot, I mean, even Eric Pearson, in a way, I mean, those are the kind of guys that you have to be perfect week in and week out, and that you really have to focus on hitting your marks, because one off week is 1 week that those guys are on it, and hey, they're constantly top 3 guys. We're talking about every week. They don't make mistakes, and if they make mistakes, it's very rare. So again, those mistakes hurt, and they have to capitalize on every time they make a mistake. But hey, things happen.
Things happen indeed, and that certainly, I'd say a lot happened tonight, but really nothing. Not much actually happened on track tonight until we got down to those last 2 laps. All of our interviewees mentioned it. It was fuel mileage from the get-go, and everybody knew it, so everybody had to play that game this entire race. And now, Matt, we look forward to next week. We look forward to Milwaukee.
That's a big thing. We're looking forward to Milwaukee and trying to figure out the dynamics of drivers. And Milwaukee is such a much harder track and much more aero-dependent track. I'd be kind of looking at maybe, and I put this a hard maybe, we're going to see a lot of aero problems and a lot of aero push out of these drivers. So we're going to kind of wait and see how this kind of pans out.
Well, Matt, I believe that might just do it for us tonight, unless you have any last thoughts.
No, sir. I am all good to go.
All right. Well, that was race 6 in season 6 of the Dark Horse DW12 Racing Series. My name is Jeff Johnson. You may or may not ever see me again here up in the booth.
You'll be back.
Now, I don't know. I don't know about
won't
Sunday
fire
nights,
you.
Matt.
I promise you.
But I am Jeff Johnson. That is Matthew Rodriguez, and I hope you all have a wonderful night.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.